Amid the global wave of anti-Israel sentiments in the media, one specific voice stood out. Erin Molan, an Australian news anchor who became a refreshing and unique figure for the Israeli audience. Week after week, she boldly criticized the hypocrisy directed at Israel, often at great personal cost. These days, Erin is visiting Israel, and we are honored to have Erin with us here today. Erin, hi. Thank you so much for joining us in our studio.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. First trip to Israel. Can you believe it?
No, I can't believe it, and we'll talk about it. But first of all, let me take a moment to thank you on behalf of myself and behalf of many, many, many Israelis that saw your voice, as I've mentioned, as a refreshing and unique voice in the global media. So first of all, thank you, Erin.
That means so much, but it also makes me really sad that so many people feel the need to thank me, because all I'm doing is looking at facts and then telling the truth. So how sad that that is rare. It makes me feel really sad.
It's very rare, and as I've mentioned, we'll talk about it, but you've mentioned it's your first time in Israel, and it's hard to believe because of the voice you took in the last year.
I had to ask someone what the kefir was called only maybe 2 months ago. I mean, I have no association or affiliation. I have no bias. I have no agenda. I'm not
Jewish.
I'm not Jewish. I'm not from Israel. You know, anything that you could possibly think of to come at me with won't work. I am an Australian who's never been here before. In fact, I've only just, I mean, now I have a lot of Jewish friends. But before October 7, I had one school mum friend, and I really didn't know anyone else in the Jewish community that well. So what I do is speak the truth, and I stand up for what is right. And it blows my mind that the rest of the world don't see it as clearly as I do, and it scares me as well.
Yeah, it's really scaring us all. And you've become such a prominent, one of the most prominent ambassadors for Israel in Australia, but also a distinct pro-Israel voice in the global media, all global media. What is the moment you realized this is a significant issue for you, and what was your stance on Israel before October 7th?
It's a great question. So I think the other quite unique aspect of me is I was a sports host for most of my career, for 20 years nearly. I was the first woman to host rugby league, the footy show, and so I lived in an entirely different world. So you asked me what my stance on Israel was prior. I didn't really have one, because I never had to talk about it publicly or officially. And in Australia, we feel very far away. So we keep across, and I'm very passionate about national security and foreign affairs and defence. So I keep across it, but I wouldn't say particularly that I had a stance at all. But when October 7 occurred, I lost my beautiful dad maybe 10 months prior, in January of that year. And when I woke up in the middle of the night with my little girl next to me, and I saw the headlines, the news starting to come of what was happening.
The videos.
It was the first time since he died that I went to call him. And so that to me was, and I don't really believe in spirituality or signs or anything like that, but Dad was this incredible ally of Israel, and he came to Israel many times. He was a major general in the army and a senator. And I didn't even realize it was after my monologues, my editorials started going viral all over the world, that Mum sent me this screenshot. Dad had come to Israel in 2014 to investigate the war. And the headline of his investigation as a major general with a bunch of foreign retired generals was, "They put us to shame in how they conduct warfare." And my dad ran the war in Iraq for a year. He's run wars in East Timor. He's the most experienced, he was the most experienced general in Australia that's currently serving. And for him to, with his moral compass, which I know better than anyone, is second to none. It cannot be moved. Even when he was fighting ISIS, Al-Qaeda, we would say to him as kids, "How can you follow the rules? Why do you have to follow the rules when they don't? They're evil, they're terrorists." And Dad would say, if we don't follow the rules and stand up for what we believe in, what's the point? What are we fighting for? We're fighting to protect what we believe in. And if we stoop to their level, if we do what they do, if we throw away what matters to us, then there's no point. We might as well not even fight to save anything, because we don't have anything. So with that in my mind, when I saw those words from Dad, and when I looked at the situation, there's just no doubt in my mind. There are enough experts in the world who also have no agenda, who say that when it comes to minimising civilian casualties, when it comes to warnings, when it comes to what you are doing, you do it almost better than anyone else in the world. So I feel so sorry for a country that has had some of the most appalling things in the world done to it. October 7 was, I know there's a huge history, but to me, that's just the depravity, the evil, the horror of it. And I look at a reaction of a world who should be saying, what can we do to help you? And even then, it's not going to be enough because you'll never heal from that. But what can we do? And instead, the world went, maybe you're to blame. How can we make this your fault? How can we condemn you? And that's crazy.
So you see it in a clear way, and your voice is so clear and strong. So what distincts you from other journalists in Australia, in the global media? Why do you see the facts and you know what is true and others don't?
I'd like to think, and I know actually for a fact, a lot of people in the media will send me messages who are on different networks and who host different shows and say, that was amazing what you said. I wish I could do that too. I think a lot of people are scared. A lot of people are scared about their reaction. They're scared that they might get threats as well. They're scared that they might lose contracts or lose jobs, you know, ambassadorships. They're worried about polarising themselves. But my response to that would be, and each to their own, because no judgment here, but I'm much more worried about a world that allows terrorism to flourish than I am about anything personal. Because it doesn't, you can have everything in the world, but if terrorism is allowed to continue at the trajectory it's continuing with the support of seemingly the masses in the world, particularly young people, we are completely screwed. Nothing else matters. So
some of your peers, your colleagues in the media industry, privately texted you and supported you, but couldn't make it out loud?
And look, at my old network, Sky News Australia, there's some incredibly powerful voices on there who are wonderful in this space. So I'll say that. Absolutely, colleagues of mine, former colleagues at different networks in Australia, text me a lot and say, that was amazing, great point, powerful. They're not saying anything like it though. So I would be disappointed by that, yes, but I would also be comforted by the fact that there is a very large silent majority who stands with you, despite the fact they don't quite have the means yet to share that publicly.
So let's talk, Erin, about the elephant in the room, in the studio. Maybe it's not an elephant, but I know it's a very complex and delicate question for you, the issue of the dismissal.
Yes.
Was the dismissal, in your opinion, as far as you know, connected to your determined stance for Israel?
Not at Sky News Australia. As far as I know, no. And it just wouldn't make sense to me because there are other voices who are super strong. But I'd say this in terms of other positions, it definitely impacted those, and I know that. But do you know what? I don't want to work with people, or if I'm missing out on opportunities because I stand against terrorism, then I don't want anything to do with those companies or those people. So I know that I do absolutely speak out very strongly for Israel. Yes, I lost my job at Sky News Australia, but in my mind, I can't connect the two as being directly responsible.
Because here in Israel, it was the narrative, lots of Israeli people who support you, who love you.
Which is
why you connect and tie between the dismissal and your
incredible,
support.
and the support has been incredible. And what I would say is, I want to focus on the future. I want to focus on moving forward. And if people want to be angry that I'm no longer there with the platform, completely fine. But be excited that I'm about to get a much bigger one.
Okay,
that's what I would
much
say.
Bigger platform. We'll keep it for the end of our conversation. Have you anticipated the backlash after October 7th, after your first editorial, your first segment?
Never in my life. And something I haven't really spoken about yet to anyone. So I was an advocate for online safety well before October 7. So because I was the first woman to start hosting football and sport, you can imagine some of the awful things that I would get online, like, people threatened to rape my unborn child, to kill me, to, utterly ridiculous. So I started to lobby the government and say, we need free speech absolutely every day of the week. I believe so much in free speech. But what I don't believe in is things that are illegal in the real world that are okay online. I shouldn't have to look behind my back because someone's threatened to rape my unborn child when I'm 8 months pregnant. So I started this campaign to push for the Online Safety Act, which essentially just meant that we mirror the laws that exist in real life online. And that was passed like 3 years ago in Parliament, and the Prime Minister at the time called it Erin's Law. So I was immensely proud of that. I was trying to make the world safer for kids. So I understand what it's like to be attacked on social media and to be threatened on social media. What happened after I spoke out for the first time in this space, if I'd imagined the worst case scenario, and I understood that there would be people who didn't agree with me. I understood that there would be sections of the community who would voice and express that. Fine, whatever. I'm a big girl.
It was on another level.
I could never have imagined. It was so bad that I needed a police escort to go to work. I needed to give my daughter, my 6-year-old, to her father for a period of time because there were so many, and not just random, but really specific death threats.
Can you share us those threats?
There were ones about my daughter's preschool. There were ones about, I know you go to this area, I know you live here, really specific. And then I went to the police and the police looked into so many of them, and there were so many connections to, and I've got to be careful with what I say here, but let's just say that these weren't considered to just be idiots in their mum's basement sending messages. There were some pretty serious players in this space. So I could never have envisaged that, and it was really hard. And I was, I think, a little bit traumatised by it. And I remember I took the next week off, and I never take a day off. I was meant to do a show the next day, actually, a different show. And I rang my boss and I said, I'm drowning here, I can't do it. I was scared for my child. And I had a big week of, do I just ignore this issue? It's my show, it's called Erin. I can talk about everything else in the world. We're in Australia. I can ignore it. It doesn't mean I need to change my stance, but I can just ignore it. Talk about US politics, talk about Australian politics, blah, blah. I couldn't. I got back up that very next week and I looked down that camera and I went harder.
And Erin, what did your family know in real time? I mean, if anyone from your circles, your closest circles, approached you and told you, Erin, maybe you can skip expressing your pro-Israeli stance, just at least for this week?
I definitely had people who suggested to me that it might be better for me in a more simpler, peaceful existence to not even tone it down, but to just avoid it altogether. But that's not me. I'm not capable of that. And I have this kind of perspective and mentality with anything. And it's just, same as relationships might break down and then you go through something awful, but pick your hard. That's what I always say to myself, pick your hard. So I look at this and I say, okay, you choose the hard of speaking out now with the chance that it might make a difference. It might help in some tiny way to shift the narrative, which in turn will help canvass support, which in turn will help heap pressure on Hamas, which in turn will help free the hostages, end the threat, etc., etc. Or I can be silent now, and my hard will be 5-10 years down the track when terrorism, the claws of it, which we've already seen, have come to my country, have come to Europe, have come to America. It's
not an Israeli problem.
No, it's not.
It's a problem of Australia and Europe and the US and all the democratic countries.
And it's a problem of Islamic countries. It's a problem for everyone. Everyone in the world is impacted negatively by this. And right now we can say, oh, it's far away. It's not. It's already here.
Yeah, like Douglas Murray has argued for years, we're in a war on the West. I assume you can agree with him.
Very much so.
We talked about Israel. I'll skip my question. I wanted to ask you if you have any regrets, but you don't. Okay. Yeah.
Regrets.
Regrets?
I'm actually thinking, because I want you to know I'm taking it seriously. Like in my life generally, or just in this
you
can.
I was going to
say, well, there was this one guy that I dated back in the day. He was awful.
I meant the Israeli issue, but you can answer it generally.
Honestly, no, not even for a second. In fact, as time goes on and as it gets bigger, and when I say gets bigger, the platform gets bigger, it gets more widely seen, more hate comes, absolutely, but so does more support. I'm more staunch now in my support. I'm more determined to do what I think is right.
So we talked about Israel, and I want to take you back to Australia and the rising and the surge of the anti-Semitic incidents in Australia, such as the arson attack on the Melbourne synagogue and the anti-Jewish graffiti. How do you explain this surge?
It's crazy. It's very simple to explain, in my opinion, and I hate it when people blame politicians for things, because I think you're always going to have awful people. You're always going to have people who have bad intentions. But I say when I look at the response of the Australian government, not just initially, but to this day, when they are buying into such fallacies, such falsehoods, when they are perpetuating them, what it says to every person in Australia is, gosh, if our government thinks they're committing genocide, or if our government thinks Netanyahu's a war criminal, well, then they must be evil. Everything starts at the top, right? And Australia at the moment, the government's response to the situation in the Middle East has been so disappointing. And in different ways, it's been utterly disgraceful. There's been moments of real national shame that I have felt in terms of us turning our back on an ally, on a country that has been incredible to us for many, many years. And it really, it shames me.
So Australia was one of Israel's closest allies. It can change again if the government will be changed?
I can tell you there is the opposition leader, Peter Dutton, who I'm very close to. He spoke at my dad's funeral. He is one of the most incredible men you will ever meet. You will not find a stronger ally in Australia. He has been superb since this entire thing. And there are a lot of polls, I know we can't always believe the polls, but there are a lot of polls at the moment that point towards a coalition victory, which would be incredible. And I feel like you look off the back of Trump, there's this shift globally where I think people are sick to death of wokeness. They're sick to death of people doing things because they think they should, or people not being rational and practical. It's not about being an awful person or being a bigot or it's about being sensible and rational and doing the right thing. And we're not seeing enough of that, particularly in Australia. So I feel like watch this space, but I have hope.
So is there a gap between the sentiment of the Australian people on the Australian streets and its politicians, its government?
Look, my assessment, and I clearly speak to a lot of people on this all the time, people stop me and speak all the time, I genuinely believe the vast majority of Australians stand with Israel and stand against terror, the vast majority. The issue is that we have a very loud, vocal minority, like anywhere else in the world. And my point is always if we are silent, the people who are rational, who understand the conflict, who understand the difference between good and evil, then we allow way too much space for them to take up.
You know, this is my argument. One should not be swayed by the riots, the pro-Palestinian riots and protests. The vast majority, the silent majority, knows the truth.
And I'll tell you, even like with car racing, I used to cover car racing, and I would do like an 8 or 10 hour car race. And all I would put in my 1 minute package in the news at night would be the crashes, because that's the big spectacle, right? That's the best thing to watch.
But it's not reality.
It's not reality. 50 cars did not crash, and including the car that won. But I'm going to show you those because I want you watching, because it's advertising, because you've got to generate engagement, etc., etc. And I look at that with the anti-Semitism in Australia as well, as yes, it gets headlines, yes, it's been horrific in so many ways, but it does not by any stretch of the imagination represent the vast majority of people in my country.
You mentioned your father. He was a general politician, and your connections to the opposition in Australia. Is it ambition of yours?
They have tried for many years to get me to run, many, many years. Look, there is something that yearns definitely to fulfil my dad's legacy. And one of the things he was incredibly passionate about, and he used to drive people crazy with it, but not for a silly reason, because it makes sense, but a national security strategy. We don't have a national security strategy, and we look at the threat of China. We look at war in the Middle East. We look at Russia, and it is crazy. And Dad fought for that till the day that he died, and I feel just as strongly. And it's not even about the military readiness to fight. It's oil, it's food security, it's all these things. So one day, definitely, but I guess as a single mum with a 6-year-old, if I was still with her father, it would probably be a little bit more likely, because we could all go places together, and so I wouldn't have to leave her. But because I'm a single mum, I'd have to leave her, and I can't do that yet. I want to be with her I'm happy to work 20 hours a day. I'm happy to do anything, but
You're a mother.
Yeah, I need to be, that's my main job. I want to pick her up from school, and I want to put her to bed. And then I'm happy to stay up all night and work, but I can't be travelling and going to Parliament in a different city. And so not for now, but down the track. But do you know what I've noticed, especially with the Online Safety Act and a lot of advocacy work, charity work, this kind of work, is that I can actually make a bigger difference from outside of politics at this stage in my life. So,
you know, you're doing such a great job. It's we call it hasbara. It's public diplomacy.
Yeah.
But something is missing in Israeli public diplomacy. But we have a case. We have a strong case on the surface. What is missing in your opinion? What can we do differently?
Do you know it's crazy? And this question, and people ask me this often, and I look at what you went through on October 7. I look at the Holocaust. I look at so many instances and challenges. Challenges is not even a good enough word that you and your people have gone through. October 7, let's just stick with that one for now, just that one day. And I went and saw the Nova site, the kibbutz. I've watched the unedited raw vision. I've watched the footage. For a country to have to think, now we need a PR strategy for this, is absolutely, and you can beat this out, batshit crazy. That is crazy. You suffered the worst loss of life since the Holocaust. In not just, it wasn't just killing of people, it was evil, malicious torture. It was children watching their parents die, then burned alive. It was, I can't comprehend the level of depravity that I witnessed in those videos and at those sites. And the world wants you to figure out a plan to come out looking like the good people. That is crazy. I honestly, I feel like, again, the vast majority see this for what it is. But when you've got algorithms, social media, when you've got very rich, influential countries that wish you harm, who support terrorism, putting millions and billions of dollars into this space, the issue is not your lack of good PR. You as a country and a people you don't need PR. You were massacred by evil terrorists. You don't need PR. You need the evil players to stop being able to do what they do, which is attempt to mind wash the masses.
So I must ask, has anyone from a Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel approached you?
Well, I had a meeting. I've had a few meetings. I met with the Speaker of the House, Ahana, this morning. We went to the Department of Foreign Affairs, your version of that. And the minister was meant to come, but he got called away, so I didn't actually get to meet him. But I met the head of the department, yes, and they were saying to me, you know, they asked the same question, absolutely. And I think the most powerful of tens of thousands of people have reached out, and it's been incredible, the good ones. But the thing that just hasn't left me, the one that has impacted me the most, is just a regular bloke who wrote to me, and he's Australian, he's not Jewish, he's the same as me, no skin in the game, even though we all have skin in the game. And he said, my morals haven't changed and my values haven't changed, but after watching your clips, the side that I now know they align with has. And how powerful is that? It's just a shift where people go, I care about kids in Gaza. I care about kids in Gaza. You care about kids in Gaza. The way to save them is to stop the terrorists. That's how you save them. Not condemning Israel or flying the flags of Hamas in the streets or at your university or at our Christmas celebration. The way to save the kids that we all apparently care about is to eradicate the terrorists who are killing them.
And not condemning Israel.
Correct.
Yes, Erin, you've been here for 4 days, but as I understand, on Friday night you were in Jerusalem and not in Tel Aviv, so you didn't get the full experience.
No, I didn't. I woke up to of course, my mother had sent me 50 messages. I woke up and saw, and I don't understand how you live. I don't understand. I look at my little girl, and if she's got a cough, then I feel sick that she might be uncomfortable, and I feel worried. And how do you as people, as parents, as families, do you just have this sick feeling all the time? My heart breaks for you, not even for what Hamas does to you and what they did and what they're still doing, but just imagine the rest of the world. Imagine living in a place where at any second your child could be wiped off the... Imagine. That's what people don't understand.
And do people in Australia doesn't understand?
I don't think so.
What is the coverage of the hostages in Australia?
See, the issue in Australia, and this is, so for example, our public broadcaster, the ABC, I was in the car the other day driving, and the start of the bulletin was something to the effect of, we are on day 400 and something of Israel's illegal invasion of Gaza. And this is when you think, there's no malice, but you think about, with them I assume there is, but with people listening, everyday Australians, mothers, they're tired, they're working 5 jobs, cost of living crisis, 6 kids, husbands are being mean, and they hear that, they get out of the car, that's their narrative. they're not like me. I read, all I do is watch Fox News, I listen to the ABC, so I'm balanced. I read articles, I research, this is my life. For most people, they don't have the luxury of being able to look deeper. So that's what I try and do in my clips. What I'm trying to do is really simply and hopefully effectively and hopefully powerfully point out the complete hypocrisy that exists in that statement. It wasn't an illegal invasion. They came in and murdered like over 1,000 people and stole people, 100 of whom are still there. Israel's trying to get its people back and trying to stop the terrorists from doing the same thing over and over and over. But if you're just listening to that and you're not as engaged as me,
it's so difficult to hear it as an Israeli.
Yeah.
I also prefer Fox News, but when I hear like even Piers Morgan, that he is a balanced anchor newsman, it's still very difficult to hear this narrative.
Even just people quoting the death toll as though it is fact, rather than saying
fake days,
these are Hamas numbers. Just this is important because we are a news organization. I'm an opinion host. I'm a commentator. I give my opinion. But when I watch news shows who spout as fact,
you want the facts,
things that are not true, or what they should say is 40,000 from this is what Hamas, a terrorist organization, and hey, we're not saying they're not right, but they're not renowned for being particularly accurate people, you know? So I just feel like, the media has gone absolutely crazy, the mainstream media.
Yes. So Erin, what will be your next step, your next platform, bigger platform? Oh
gosh, that's a lot of pressure now. I shouldn't have said bigger. Look, it's been crazy, the response. And I think what I've learned, because like, I'll be honest with you, like this year I started the year with jobs, big jobs, lots of jobs, and I end the year with no job. And for me, that would normally be terrifying. And when I got the call from Sky, it was gut-wrenching because it's my world, it's my passion, it's my purpose, but I think I very quickly realized after a couple of days of feeling sorry for myself, that the value in me is in me. That yes, it was great, the studio, the whole thing, but what I do and what I do differently, I don't need a network to do. I can do what I do. I write everything that I say. I come up with all of my points. I deliver it myself. I am the product, essentially. So where I take that, lots of different meetings.
I can assume you got lots of phone calls.
Can I just say, like, I'm not a celebrity person because I'm not very cool.
Here in Israel, you're a celebrity.
No, well, I mean, that's very sweet and that's amazing. Thank you so much. But the celebrities that called me afterwards, my phone, I can't even say name because can I say one name?
Yeah, you can. I confirm.
Well, no, I won't say that. I'll just, unbelievable the support that I've received from the most incredible people that I couldn't even, I would never have thought would know I exist, have reached out and offered support, and networks overseas, and it's just been social media companies, platforms who want to look at doing things differently. It's been mind-blowing. And I went to the Western Wall this morning, and I went to write my note, and I didn't really know what to write, so I wrote, "Dear God," and then you can imagine, $1 million for the mortgage, another job. I had all these things that I was, my daughter to be healthy and happy. But I actually this thing came over me and I just wrote, "Thank you." I just feel this, it's crazy, but I feel this incredible, I don't know if it's because I'm here and this place is so special, but this incredible sense of gratitude and hope and excitement. And I feel like this is a blessing in disguise. So I'm so excited about what's to come.
We are excited. And you are our blessing, Erin.
Oh, I love you.
Thank you once again, Erin Molan. Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you. You do such a good job.